You're done, Rick. Troy Brennan said it flat as day-old coffee right there in the Monday morning meeting. No build-up, no we need to talk conversation. Just looked across the conference table I'd helped pick out 12 years ago and dropped it like he was telling me the weather. Today's your last day. We're making some changes. I was halfway through the quarterly infrastructure report when those words hit. 24 years at that company, and this is how it ends. Not in his office with the door closed, but in front of the whole senior team like I was some intern they were cutting loose. My name's Rick Porter, I'm 51 years old, and I just spent nearly half my life building everything that company ran on. Started there when we had 30 employees and one server that sounded like a jet engine taking off. Now they had offices in 12 countries running on infrastructure I designed. Across the table, Tyler Brennan, Troy's nephew, all of 28 years old, leaned back in his chair wearing my security badge, my gold-trimmed clearance badge that took me 15 years to earn. Kid was grinning like he'd just won the lottery. No hard feelings, Uncle Rick, Tyler said. Company's got to stay competitive, you know? Fresh blood and all that. Uncle Rick, the nerve on this kid. Troy kept talking, using all the corporate buzzwords I'd been hearing for months. Digital transformation, right-sizing, optimization for the future. Translation. We want to pay someone half your salary to do what you do. Here's what really got me. 3 days earlier, I'd skipped Katie's volleyball tournament, her first game as team captain, to handle a critical server migration over the weekend. Saved the company about $400,000 in potential downtime. That didn't even make it into my termination paperwork. The thing is, I saw this coming. Not the firing exactly, but the writing on the wall. Troy had been parading Tyler around for months, calling him our next generation infrastructure lead. The kid would sit in on technical meetings, nodding like he understood packet routing and database architecture, then ask questions that proved he had no clue what we were talking about. Last week, he'd suggested we could boost our cloud performance by upgrading to bigger hard drives. I'd spent 20 minutes explaining the difference between local storage and distributed systems. He still looked confused. But here's what Troy didn't know, what nobody in that room remembered. 15 years ago, I'd watched a competitor get destroyed when a disgruntled employee walked out with all their architectural knowledge and left them dead in the water. That's when I fought tooth and nail to get something written into my contract. Clause 22B, the Legacy Architecture Protection Protocol. Basically, if the original architect, me, got terminated without proper cause, I automatically got emergency revert access to all core systems for 90 days. It was meant to be a fail-safe against exactly this kind of corporate backstabbing. I looked around that conference room. Andy from Network Security, sitting there staring at his laptop. I'd trained him personally, spent months walking him through advanced routing protocols. Maria from Systems Integration. I taught her everything she knew about database architecture. Half the people in that room owed their careers to me. Not one of them said a word. Troy slid the termination packet across the table, his signature already on the last page. We appreciate your service, Rick. Really. But it's time for some fresh perspectives. Fresh perspectives. From a kid who thought SSDs were super storage devices. So I stood up, collected the packet, and walked out. Didn't slam the door, didn't make a scene, just walked out like it was any other Monday morning. Behind me, I could hear Tyler already talking about exciting new directions and innovative solutions. The math hit me before I even got to my office. Mortgage payment due in 2 weeks, $2,400. Katie's spring semester tuition due next month, $18,000. Health insurance expires in 30 days, and COBRA payments would run us about $1,200 a month. Our emergency fund might cover 6 months if we were careful, but at 51, in this job market, who was going to hire a guy like me? Last month, our neighbor Phil got laid off from his accounting firm after 22 years. He's been sending out resumes for 4 months without a single callback. Too expensive, he told me over the fence. They can hire 2 kids fresh out of college for what they were paying me. I spent the morning boxing up my office. 24 years fits into surprisingly few boxes. Katie's honor roll photo from sophomore year. Hand-drawn network diagrams I'd never digitized because my shorthand was faster than any documentation software. The coffee mug Susan gave me for my 10th anniversary at the company. Back when I thought I'd retire from this place. People walked past my door. Most pretended not to see me. Andy stopped by long enough to mumble, "Sorry, man," but didn't slow down. Nobody wanted to be seen talking to the guy who'd just been fired. The coffee pot in this break room still had the dent from when I dropped it during the 2019 ransomware crisis. I'd worked 18-hour days for a week straight to rebuild our security after that attack. Missed Katie's birthday party, slept in my office, lived on vending machine food until we were back online. Around lunch, I finished packing, walked to security, handed over my parking pass and building keys. The guard looked uncomfortable. Nice guy named Pete worked there about 5 years. I'd helped him understand the new access control system when they upgraded. That everything, mister? Porter? Pete asked. That's everything. I loaded my boxes into the Honda and sat there for a minute. Through the lobby windows, I could see Tyler pacing around the conference room, gesturing with his hands, probably explaining his vision for the future to people who actually knew what they were doing. The drive home gave me time to think about what came next. Susan would be supportive. She always was. But I could see the worry in her eyes when I told her. Katie would pretend it wasn't a big deal, but she'd be calculating whether she needed to transfer to a cheaper school. But here's the thing. While Troy and Tyler were back there celebrating their cost-saving initiative, my termination had just triggered something they didn't even know existed. The 90-day countdown had started, and they had no idea what was coming. Because you don't fire the guy who built your foundation and expect it to keep standing. Tuesday morning, I woke up with nowhere to go for the first time in 24 years. Made coffee, sat at the kitchen table in my old jeans and a ratty t-shirt, and tried to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do with myself. The house felt too quiet. Susan had already left for her job at the medical center, and Katie was back at college, so it was just me and the hum of the refrigerator. At 9:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Text from Andy. Belgium facility locked out. System says original architect credentials required. Tyler's running around like his hair's on fire. I took a slow sip of coffee and smiled for the first time since Monday. The protocol had kicked in automatically the second my termination processed. Every international facility was asking for my personal authorization to keep running. By 9:30, 3 more messages came through. Singapore operations suspended. Toronto data center requesting manual override. Montreal facility frozen mid-backup. All the same issue. Legacy licensing tied to my unique back-end authentication key. Here's what was happening. When I designed our global infrastructure, I built in security layers that required the original architect's credentials for major operations. It wasn't malicious. It was protection against exactly what Troy just did. You can't hand over a billion-dollar operation to someone who doesn't understand how it works. Susan called around 10. Rick, your phone's been going crazy. Everything okay? Everything's fine, honey. Actually, everything's better than fine. What's going on? Remember when I told you about that insurance policy I built into my contract years ago? Well, it just activated. She knew that tone. After 23 years of marriage, Susan could read me like a technical manual. Should I be worried? Only if you're Troy Brennan. The texts kept coming. Andy again. Tyler just asked if we can restart the internet to fix the Singapore issue. I'm not kidding. Then from Luis in procurement. Boss, Tyler called our backup servers extra computers. The whole team's just staring at him. I looked up Tyler's LinkedIn while I finished my second cup of coffee. Yesterday's post, excited to lead digital transformation at Brennan Tech. Innovation waits for no one. Just next-gen leadership. The comments were already getting interesting. Someone had written, hope you understand the systems you're inheriting. Another, experience greater than enthusiasm, always. Around noon, the real panic started. My phone rang, Andy calling directly this time. Rick, they want me to ask if you'd consider consulting temporarily. Who's asking? Troy. But he's too proud to call you himself. I could picture that. Troy sitting in his corner office, realizing his cost-cutting measure had just cost him control of his own company. What's the hourly rate for saving someone from their own stupidity? I asked. He didn't mention money. Just asked if you'd be available for a quick conversation. Tell him I'm not available today. I'm taking Katie to lunch, which was true. She was driving down from college because word travels fast in our family. Rick, I don't think you understand how bad this is. The entire European operation is offline. Singapore can't access customer databases. Tyler's been in the server room for 3 hours trying to manually restart systems that require voice authentication protocols. Voice authentication that was keyed to my vocal patterns. Good luck with that, Tyler. That sounds like a Tyler problem, not a Rick problem. There was a long pause. You're really not coming back, are you? Andy, in 24 years, when did I ever leave you hanging during a crisis? Never. And yesterday, when Troy fired me in front of everyone, did you speak up? Another pause. Number. Then we understand each other. Katie showed up around 1 p.m. and we went to Murphy's Diner. She was picking at her fries when she looked up and said, Dad, you seem different. How so? Less stressed. You're not checking your phone every 30 seconds. You're not talking about server loads or network bottlenecks. She grinned. It's weird seeing you just sitting here. My phone was buzzing, though. While Katie told me about her computer science classes, I watched message after message pile up. Tyler had apparently locked himself out of the main system completely. Someone had seen him on security cameras in the server room, just standing there staring at error messages like they might change if he waited long enough. The best part was watching his LinkedIn presence crumble in real time. That morning's innovation waits for no one post was getting roasted by people who actually understood technology. Someone had screenshot his restart the internet comment and turned it into a meme. By the time we finished lunch, Tyler had made all his accounts private. Dad, Katie said, your phone's been buzzing for 10 minutes. Former workplace having some technical difficulties. You mean the place that fired you yesterday? That's the one. She laughed. Good. Maybe they'll learn not to fire the guy who built everything. That afternoon, Maria Santos called. The company lawyer, same woman who'd helped me draft Clause 22B 15 years ago. Rick, we need to discuss the contract provisions that seem to have activated. Which provisions? The ones transferring intellectual property ownership. Troy says he's never seen this language before. I almost laughed. Maria, you were in the room when we negotiated that clause. You helped write it. That was 15 years ago, Rick. I honestly didn't remember the details. Well, maybe you should review your files. 47 patents transferred to your name automatically yesterday. Our entire infrastructure design, security protocols, database architecture, everything. That stopped me cold. I knew about the patent transfer provision, but I'd never calculated the current value. How much are we talking about? The IP is valued at approximately $4 billion. I sat down hard in my kitchen chair. 1.4 billion? With a B, Rick? You still there? I'm here. The board is asking if there's any way to reverse this. Is there any way to reverse firing me without cause? That's not how this works. Then you have your answer. By evening, the scope of the problem was becoming clear. Andy sent me screenshots of internal emails. Troy had sent a company-wide memo. We are experiencing temporary integration challenges with some legacy infrastructure. The situation is manageable and will be resolved through normal IT protocols. Legacy infrastructure. The same systems handling 80% of their daily operations. Susan came home to find me on the couch, scrolling through news about their stock price. Down 22% in one day. How was your first day of unemployment? She asked. Educational. Turns out I'm worth more than we thought. I showed her the patent transfer notification on my phone. She read it twice. $1.4 billion, apparently, and they just gave this to you? They fired me without proper cause. According to the contract I signed 15 years ago, that automatically transfers ownership of all architectural IP back to the original creator. Susan was quiet for a long moment. Then she started laughing. Not the nervous laugh she'd been doing when we talked about money lately. A real deep laugh. Those complete idiots, she said. They actually gave away the company to save on your salary. Pretty much. So what happens tomorrow? I looked toward downtown, where Troy and Tyler were probably having the worst night of their careers. Tomorrow, we find out how long a company can run without its foundation. Wednesday morning brought the emergency board meeting I'd been expecting. Andy texted me at 7 a.m., full board called in. 3 guys flew in overnight. Troy looks like he hasn't slept in 48 hours. I was having breakfast at Murphy's Diner, same place I'd been getting coffee before work for 10 years. Maureen, the waitress who knew everyone's order by heart, refilled my cup and asked, "You doing okay, Rick? Word is you're not at the office anymore." "I'm doing great, Maureen. Best week I've had in years, actually." She gave me that knowing look. Sometimes the best thing that can happen is getting away from people who don't appreciate what you do. Around 9 a.m., 3 things happened almost simultaneously. First, Maria Santos called again, sounding less like a lawyer and more like someone calling for help. Second, my phone started buzzing with notifications about news articles. Third, a guy in a suit walked into Murphy's and asked if I was Rick Porter. "Depends who's asking," I said. "Gerald Hutchins from Meridian Industries. We've been following your situation in the news. Mind if I sit?" Meridian. They were Fortune 100, global infrastructure, the kind of company that doesn't send executives to diners unless something big is happening. "We're looking for someone to design our entire cloud architecture from the ground up," he said without any small talk. "Complete autonomy, unlimited budget, 5-year contract worth approximately $60 million. I nearly choked on my coffee. $60 million? Your reputation precedes you, Mr. Porter. Especially after yesterday's news coverage. While Gerald explained Meridian's project, my phone kept buzzing. Maria had called 3 more times. Andy sent another update. Tyler just tried to fix the Singapore lockout by unplugging servers and plugging them back in. Security had to escort him out of the data center. I'll need to think about your offer, I told Gerald. Of course, but don't think too long. 3 other companies are trying to set up meetings with you this week. After he left, I finally called Maria back. Rick, thank God. The board is in full crisis mode. International partners are pulling contracts. Stock dropped another 18% overnight. We're facing regulatory investigations in 4 countries. That sounds stressful. Stop being cute, Rick. What's it going to take? For what? For you to fix this mess. I looked out the diner window at the building where I'd spent 24 years of my life. From here, it looked smaller somehow. Maria, I'm not fixing anything. This isn't a mess I made. The board is prepared to offer you whatever you want. Name your price. It's not about money anymore. Then what? Respect. Recognition that you can't just discard institutional knowledge because you want to cut costs. An acknowledgement that experience actually matters. Done. You'd have all of that. Too late. There was a long pause. Rick, we're talking about the complete collapse of a billion-dollar company. Thousands of jobs. People's livelihoods. Where was this concern for livelihoods when Troy decided to fire me to save on salary costs? That was different. No, Maria, that was exactly the same. One person's livelihood mattered less than the bottom line. Now suddenly everyone's livelihood matters because the bottom line is in trouble. What do you want, Rick? Really? I thought about it. What did I want? Troy gone? Tyler disappeared? A public apology? Or just to watch the whole thing burn down? I want them to understand that actions have consequences. That you can't build something over 2 decades and then hand it to your nephew because he's young and cheap. The board is prepared to remove Troy from his position. Good start, and Tyler's already been reassigned. To what? He's no longer with the company as of this morning. I finished my coffee and left Murphy's with more job offers than I'd had in my entire career. On the drive home, 3 more companies called. Real offers from people who'd read the news stories and wanted to know if I was available. The news coverage was something else. Tech veterans' quiet revolution in the Business Journal. When experience walks out the door in the financial press. The billion-dollar mistake on the front page of the local paper. My favorite quote was from a technology analyst. This is what happens when companies confuse cost-cutting with strategic thinking. You don't replace your foundation with cheaper materials and expect the building to stand. Katie called that afternoon. Dad, you're famous. Professor Williams spent half our systems architecture class talking about your case study. He called it the most elegant corporate revenge in tech history. It's not revenge, sweetheart. It's just consequences. Same thing, right? Not exactly. Revenge is personal. Consequences are just what happens when people make bad decisions. That evening, Susan came home with wine and 3 different newspapers. Look at this coverage, she said, spreading them across the kitchen table. Every single article mentions how long you worked there, how much you built, how impossible it would be to replace you. A lot of good it does now. Rick, look at this. She showed me her phone. 5 different headhunters called the house today. 2 venture capital firms want to fund whatever you do next. Someone from Microsoft called asking if you'd consider a consulting position. Microsoft, I'd never even thought about working for the big tech companies. Always figured I was just a small company guy. There's something else, Susan said. Troy called again. What did he say? That he needed to speak with you urgently about mutually beneficial arrangements. I told him you were busy. Doing what? Planning your future. Late that night, I sat on the back porch with a beer, looking at job offers on my phone. Meridian's $60 million contract. 3 other Fortune 500 companies with similar proposals. A startup offering me CTO position plus equity. Even a government contractor wanting me to redesign their entire cybersecurity infrastructure. 24 hours ago, I was worried about making the mortgage payment. Now I had companies bidding for my services. My phone buzzed one more time. Text from Andy. Rick, half the development team put in their notice today. They're all asking if you're hiring. I typed back, not yet, but soon, because here's what I'd figured out. This wasn't about Troy or Tyler or even the company that fired me. This was about proving that experience and expertise still matter in a world that thinks everything can be replaced with something younger and cheaper. And tomorrow I was going to start proving it. Thursday morning, I made a decision that would have seemed impossible a week ago. I was going to start my own company, not because I was angry, though I was. Not because I wanted revenge, though watching Troy squirm had been satisfying. I was doing it because 3 days of job offers had taught me something important. I wasn't just another 51-year-old guy worried about being replaced. I was the guy companies were fighting over. I started by driving around downtown, looking at office space. Found a perfect spot 4 blocks from my old building. 2nd floor, big windows, clean and quiet. The rental agent was showing me around when she mentioned the neighborhood. A lot of tech companies around here, she said. Big one right down the street, though they're having some problems lately. What kind of problems? Something with their computer systems. My cousin works there, says people are jumping ship left and right. Heard they fired some guy who'd been there forever and now the whole place is falling apart. I didn't tell her she was talking to that guy. You know what's crazy? She continued. 24 years that guy worked there. Built everything they use. Then they replace him with the boss's nephew who doesn't know the first thing about computers. Sounds like poor management. That's what my cousin said. Half the smart people are already gone, and the rest are updating their resumes. I signed a 6-month lease on the spot. Simple setup. Desk, chair, phone, high-speed internet. Put one thing on the wall, a wooden plaque that read Porter Systems Architecture. By lunchtime, I'd made my first hire. Called Andy at his personal number. Rick, I was hoping you'd call. I put in my notice this morning. Good. Want to come work for someone who actually knows what they're doing? When do I start? How about Monday? I'll be there. Bring anyone else you think we can trust. I've got a list. About 8 people who are ready to bail. The good ones. That afternoon, 3 more companies called with offers. A startup in Austin wanted me as CTO with equity that could be worth millions if they went public. A government contractor needed someone to redesign their entire cybersecurity infrastructure after a major breach. Even a European firm was interested in having me consult on their expansion into Asian markets. But the call that mattered came around 4 p.m. Charles Hoffman, board chairman at my old company. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. Rick, we need to end this. End what, Charles? You know exactly what. The stock's down 60%. We've lost 8 international contracts worth over $300 million. The SEC is asking questions about our infrastructure stability. 3 law firms are preparing class action suits. I was sitting in my new office, feet up on the desk, looking out the window at the building where I used to work. That sounds like a Troy problem. Troy's gone. We accepted his resignation this morning. What about Tyler? Tyler's been reassigned to other opportunities. Outside the company? So you fired your CEO and your next generation infrastructure lead in the same week. Interesting management strategy. Rick, name your price. Whatever you want. Salary, equity, title, complete autonomy. Just come back and fix this. I thought about it. Going back would be easy. Familiar. I could probably negotiate a package worth millions, fix their systems, be the hero who saved the company. Charles, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not interested in fixing your problem. Why not? Because it's not my problem anymore. You made that very clear on Monday. We made a mistake. You made a choice. There's a difference. What's it going to take, Rick? Nothing you can offer. I'm building something new. With what? You're one guy with an office. Today I'm one guy with an office. Next week I'll have a team. Next month I'll have clients. Next year I'll have what you used to have. A company that actually works. I hung up and looked at my list of potential hires. Andy was bringing 8 people. I'd gotten calls from 6 others who wanted to jump ship. My old QA manager had reached out through LinkedIn. Even Maria from Systems Integration had sent a carefully worded message asking if I might have future opportunities available. Friday morning, I got a call that changed everything. Dr. Elizabeth Warren from Stanford's Computer Science Department. Mr. Porter, I've been following your story in the business press. I'm wondering if you'd consider a guest lecture position. My students are fascinated by your case, how someone can embed protective measures into infrastructure design. What would I be teaching? Real-world systems architecture, the kind of practical knowledge you don't get from textbooks. How to build systems that last, how to protect your work, how to handle corporate politics when you're the one who keeps everything running. A teaching position at Stanford. That hadn't been on my radar at all. I'd be honored, Doctor. Warren, excellent. Would twice a month work? We can arrange your schedule around your other commitments. Other commitments. I like the sound of that. Saturday, Susan and I drove up to see Katie play volleyball. She ran over after the match, still sweating from the game. Dad, everyone's talking about you. My roommate's dad works in tech, and he said what you did is legendary. He called it the most elegant way to prove your worth ever documented. I didn't set out to prove anything, sweetheart. I just built protection into my work. Yeah, but now everyone knows you can't just throw away someone with real skills. My CS professor said your case is going to be studied in business schools for years. As what? How not to manage talent. And how real expertise always wins over corporate politics. That evening, I sat on the back porch with Susan, watching the sunset and planning the future. Porter Systems Architecture had 3 clients lined up, a team of experienced engineers ready to start, and enough project offers to keep us busy for 2 years. Any regrets? Susan asked. I thought about 24 years of my life ended in a conference room on a Monday morning by people who thought I was replaceable. Just one, I said. What's that? That it took them firing me to realize what I was actually worth. And now I get to build something that's actually mine. With people who understand that experience isn't a liability, it's the most valuable thing you can have. Monday morning, I unlocked the door to Porter Systems architecture for the first time as a business owner. Andy arrived 15 minutes early, carrying coffee for both of us. Ready to show them how it's really done? He asked. I looked out the window at my old building, where new people were probably trying to figure out how to run systems they didn't understand, built by someone they'd thrown away. Let's get to work. Because that's what you do when you're 51, experienced, and finally working for someone who appreciates what you bring to the table. Yourself.